Consciousness, the way that I explain that, and I'll be completely honest, I explain it more so this way because I don't want to alienate anybody. I call it fundamentally emergent. I don't mean fundamental in the sense that everything's made out of consciousness and consciousness is primary and there wouldn't be anything without consciousness, because I don't believe there's any evidence at all that that is the case. Not in the sense that consciousness is fundamental people say it is. Like Donald Hoffman, you know, the moon's only there if you look at it. Information first does not arrive at that conclusion. The consciousness is fundamental people. I get how they arrive at this. If you look at the universe and reality in strictly material terms, something is missing. And I can see how they want to make that consciousness or an intelligence. I've heard people say it implies a mind. But coherence bias looks a lot like intelligent design. It's the constraint that dictates what does and does not make sense. So I can see how they arrive at that, but consciousness as we understand it is not at the base of anything, or at least it can't be said to be likely or to be proven that that's true in information first. In information first, consciousness is what happens as a result of that coherence bias when the trajectory is maintained. It's a pretty special thing all on its own. You know, you don't need to be made out of it for it to be a tremendous thing. It's our point of access to the informational substrate. Remote viewing and NDEs show us consciousness is our ticket to the show. And it's an important aspect of how the informational substrate evolves. Prior to living things, as far as we know, it's a pretty boring universe. This particle spins off and bonds with that particle, and they go that way and form an element and shoots off and runs into another element, and then you've got compounds and minerals and exciting maybe if you're into geology, but it's not a great story. But then, given enough time and the right conditions, that coherence bias leads to things becoming more and more complex, organizing differently, and we see self-organizing systems even pre-biology. And eventually you get something like what we have now, which is conscious agents. And they are not strictly, objects bouncing around and bumping into each other in a very deterministic way. They can model, they can process. I use the stove analogy. Not only can I put my hand on the stove and see that it's burning me, see that it's hot, I can envision what that's going to mean later. I can run scenarios. What are the long-term effects of keeping my hand here? Those are reality-shaping algorithms. What I decide to do, resulting from the ability to evaluate, process information in that way, goes on to shape reality. So not only is, if you want to be technical, the bioelectric and biochemical processes happening inside my body and brain, those are happening in physical reality. Just by virtue of my existence and being a living thing, I do affect reality, but it's in a very tiny way. But in a much bigger way, I can affect reality by all of those agentic abilities that I have. I can observe, I can categorize, I can process, I can model, I can hypothesize, I can plan, and I can do. And all of those things make consciousness look a lot more attractive to an informational substrate as a good way to move forward. But nothing's made out of it, because it's not made out of anything. It's the result of self-organizing systems doing so. There's no proof or evidence whatsoever that meets my definition of evidence that consciousness is fundamental in any way, as much as that might upset the crystals people. It's an unscientific assessment.